Hello everyone, my name is Daniela and I'm a volunteer with For a Safer Space. Today's presentation will be on the 2SLGBTQ+ community and mental health. I would like to begin this presentation with a land acknowledgement. I am conducting this presentation on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island. While it is important to acknowledge which land I'm on, it is equally as important to understand why we engage in a land acknowledgement. First, acknowledging the land is an act of decolonization. Decolonization is an act that aims to reverse colonialism. It is also significant in understanding history and acknowledging history, as well as showing respect for Indigenous peoples and their relationship to the land. However, it is important to not only use the land acknowledgement, but to educate ourselves on historical and current issues, stand with Indigenous peoples in the pursuit of social justice, and decolonize our thoughts and actions. Next, I would like to provide a content warning. This presentation details mental health as it pertains to the 2SLGBTQ+ community. Topics of violence, including physical and sexual assault, homophobia, transphobia, and mental health, including suicide and self-harm, will be discussed briefly. Today's agenda will include a brief introduction, followed by what is mental health versus mental health disabilities, history between the 2SLGBTQ+ community and the DSM, statistics, 2SLGBTQ+ youth and mental health, why are 2SLGBTQ+ individuals at heightened risk for mental health concerns, trans identities and mental health, how does mental health impact lives, important factors for mental well-being, managing mental health, supporting 2SLGBTQ+ peers, supporting 2SLGBTQ+ clients, and to conclude, resources and key takeaways will be discussed. Mental health encompasses emotional, psychological, and social aspects of well-being and is different than mental health disabilities. At heightened risk for mental health concerns are members of the 2SLGBTQ+ community. There are various reasons for this, however, it is often due to external factors and not the result of the identity itself. Youth face further complications, especially due to the differing experiences from 2SLGBTQ+ adults. However, steps can be taken to both support one's own mental health as well as others' mental health. What is mental health? Mental health encompasses emotional, psychological, and social aspects of well-being. This can impact a person's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Mental health can also play a role in stress management, our relationships with others, and the choices we make in life. Mental health is a significant aspect at every point in life, from childhood to adulthood. Mental health versus mental health disabilities. Mental health and mental illness or mental health disabilities are commonly used to mean the same thing. However, their definitions do differ. While mental health relates to an individual's mental and emotional well-being, as discussed on the last slide, mental health disabilities are diagnosable conditions that impact thoughts and behaviors heavily. While anyone can have poor mental health during their lifetime, not everyone will have a mental health disability. Similarly, while someone can have a mental health disability, they can have good mental health. Both of these can have similar actions and practices to look after them. Thus, the main differences between mental health and mental health disabilities is that mental health impacts everyone, while only some individuals may live with a mental health disability. As well, poor mental health may not result in mental health disabilities, and mental health disabilities may not result in poor mental health. Varying life experiences and factors can impact one's mental health, with or without the presence of a mental health disability. History between the 2SLGBTQ+ community and the DSM. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or the DSM, has a history of including various 2SLGBTQ+ identities because of homophobia and transphobia. The DSM is a manual of different mental health disabilities, which is referred to as mental disorders in the manual, published by the American Psychiatric Association, or the APA. In 1952, the first edition of the DSM was published, with various editions to follow since. In 1973 and 1974, most of the APA membership voted to remove homosexuality from the manual due to new evidence and people's protests. While homosexuality was removed in the third edition in 1980, variations of this stayed in the manual until 1986. Starting in 1980, termed gender identity disorder or trans identities has been listed as a disorder. The fifth edition, published in 2013, renamed this to gender dysphoria. Now we will go over some statistics to demonstrate how mental health is impacted within the 2SLGBTQ+ community. Within the 2SLGBTQ+ community, there are increased rates of depression, anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD, phobic disorders, suicidality, self-harm, and substance use. There is also twice the risk for post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, than heterosexual individuals. Youth within this group are also at heightened risk with about 14 times the risk of suicide and substance use. As well, 77% of trans youth in Ontario state that they had seriously considered suicide, while 45% have attempted it. Within the survey of trans youth in Ontario, those who had lived experiences of physical or sexual assault were at the greatest risk. 2SLGBTQ+ individuals are also said to be at greater risk for problems regarding substance use than the general population. Some studies state that substance use could be 2 to 4 times higher among 2SLGBTQ+ individuals than heterosexual individuals. A study conducted in Toronto discovered that smoking for 2SLGBTQ+ adults was at 36%, while other adults were at 17%. And American research demonstrates increased rates of alcohol-related substance use among queer women than heterosexual women. 2SLGBTQ+ youth and mental health. 2SLGBTQ+ youth are said to be more likely to live with mental health concerns than any other group. The main reason for this is due to family acceptance and bullying. Rejection and discrimination faced negatively impacts youth through various means, including individuals aiming to convince them to alter their sexual orientation, negative political climate, being in the closet, and issues surrounding bathrooms. Many also experience bullying, physical or dating violence, sexual assault, and threats or injuries with weapons while at school. In fact, one study found that only 26% of 2SLGBTQ+ youth stated that they felt safe while at school. This was also impacted through the COVID-19 pandemic, where many youth have reported declines in mental health due to having to self-isolate with unsupportive family members. Why are 2SLGBTQ+ individuals at heightened risk for mental health concerns? There are various factors that result in poor mental health among the community. It is evident that socioeconomic factors have a significant part in mental health and well-being for everyone, especially marginalized groups. To have good mental health, there are 3 different factors which include social inclusion, freedom from discrimination and violence, and access to economic resources. All of these factors impact the 2SLGBTQ+ community in a variety of ways. For instance, bisexual and trans individuals are a large portion of low-income Canadians. For instance, one Ontario study discovered that trans people had an income of less than $15,000 per year. Additionally, stigma and discrimination is a common experience, where 2SLGBTQ+ individuals are commonly victims and survivors of sexual and physical assault, harassment, and hate crimes. In fact, hate crimes have been on the rise in Canada for a while. Further aspects that can impact mental health includes the process of coming out, which can have various stressors involved, internalized depression, transitioning for trans individuals, isolation, estrangement from family and other social supports, and the impact of HIV and AIDS. Trans identities and mental health. Throughout the presentation so far, there has been evidence of trans individuals being at an even higher risk for some mental health concerns, including suicide, where the statistics are terrifying and show a deeper issue. This can be the result of severe stigma, oppression, and discrimination that is faced by trans individuals. As well, trans individuals often face obstacles in healthcare, which includes providers refusing care, violence, and a lack of knowledge on the part of the provider. Therefore, these demonstrate that it is these experiences that contribute to poor mental health outcomes, not being transgender itself. Additionally, one study found that trans youth are at heightened risk for experiencing low self-esteem due to gender dysphoria. This was reinforced by another study that discovered that trans individuals who feel comfortable and euphoria by their post-transition appearance and gender identity have increased rates of self-esteem. This only goes to show the importance of supporting and respecting trans people, as a lack of support and respect can be a determinant of poor mental health development. How does mental health impact lives? Mental health can have various impacts on someone's life. Mental health is important for health overall, similarly to physical health. In fact, mental health disabilities can actually result in physical health conditions. For instance, depression can increase the probability of developing various health concerns, such as diabetes, heart disease, and strokes. Similarly, chronic stress can result in various health outcomes, and many of which can be long-lasting. As well, there can be further impacts due to stigma associated with mental health concerns. Stigma can worsen mental health, and mental health disabilities can result in stigma, similar to a cycle. This can be especially impactful for marginalized groups, as there can be barriers to accessing safe mental health supports. Important factors for mental well-being. The Canadian Mental Health Association, or CMHA, outlines 5 key points to have positive mental health for 2SLGBTQ+ individuals, which includes familial and friend support, which can be even more significant for youth, workplaces and neighborhoods that are supportive, small amounts of internalized homophobia that can be decreased by forming confidence and identity or finding community with other 2SLGBTQ+ individuals. Internalized homophobia is homophobia adopted by a queer person regarding themselves and their identity. Good experiences with others after coming out, and finally, meeting the social determinants of health, or addressing the factors mentioned on the Why are 2SLGBTQ+ individuals at heightened risk for mental health concerns slide. Managing mental health. As discussed, mental health and mental health disabilities are two different things, and one does not determine the other. However, both of these aspects of well-being do have similar ways of being managed. As such, we will review some methods of managing mental health. However, it is important to note that not all methods will work for everyone, and there are other ways to manage mental health that are more individualized. What is important is that individuals take the time to look after their own mental well-being in a way that is effective and meaningful to them. These methods include discuss feelings and thoughts. This can help to discuss something that someone finds troubling or stressful instead of bottling up emotions. Exercise. Exercise is evident to have positive impacts on mental health, even impacting sleep habits and self-esteem positively. Eat well. Eating well and balanced can help mental health, especially as stress can result in cravings for sugary or carb-heavy foods, which can increase stress levels and impact brain chemicals. Pay attention to substance use. It is evident that many 2SLGBTQ+ individuals use substances, and substance use, including drinking alcohol, can have negative impacts on mental health. Therefore, it can be beneficial to watch what substances are being used and be sure to use them safely. Reach out. If struggling, reaching out to loved ones or a professional can help. Not everyone who seeks therapy and mental health support has a mental health disability diagnosed. Many people use these services to help cope with life stressors. Take breaks. Taking breaks can be beneficial, especially in a fast-paced world. And finally, practice hobbies. Hobbies, regardless of what they are, can have positive impacts on mental health, especially if they help to de-stress. Practicing a hobby can be a great way to manage mental health. Supporting 2SLGBTQ+ peers. There are various ways to support 2SLGBTQ+ peers beyond previously mentioned ones, especially pertaining to mental health. First, talk about mental health. Especially if there are concerns, having open and honest conversations about mental health that remain judgment-free can be key in supporting someone as they know that they have a safe space. As well, do not push for them to share something that they may not want to. Let them guide where the conversation is going and share what they feel comfortable with. Support their feelings. Without lived experience, it is impossible to understand someone else's perspective. Acknowledging the impacts of oppression and discrimination on mental health is important in ensuring safe and open spaces. Listen. This one seems obvious, but it's a lot harder than many realize. It means to go beyond listening and actively listen. Repeat what they said to ensure that you're understanding what they are saying, and be sure to lead with empathy. Offer help finding supports if they want to reach out. Most importantly, look after your own well-being and ensure self-care. It is important to understand our own boundaries when supporting someone. Supporting 2SLGBTQ+ clients. CMHA also notes various important aspects for any health provider aiming to support 2SLGBTQ+ individuals. Therefore, we will go over methods for supporting 2SLGBTQ+ clients that are significant to effectively working with them. First, improve recognition of social and legal contexts where 2SLGBTQ+ clients live. Work to acknowledge the impacts of internalized discrimination and to what extent this can impact health and mental health. Work on knowledge regarding the social determinants of health and how this relates to the 2SLGBTQ+ community. Bring awareness to family acceptance of 2SLGBTQ+ youth and promote connections with other community members. Ensure that 2SLGBTQ+ clients are not stereotyped or discriminated against, and that the gender of trans individuals is not misidentified. This can be especially important for crisis intervention. Increase awareness of intersectionality and how individuals who live at intersections may have varying obstacles to obtaining good mental health. Improve awareness of different resources for 2SLGBTQ+ individuals, including those for mental health. For an immediate mental health crisis, call a local crisis line for support. For non-immediate mental health supports, a useful resource is For a Safer Space. For a Safer Space is a nonprofit that offers accessible and inclusive mental health care. Visit the website for more information if you would like to reach out for support. To conclude this video, we will go over some key takeaways. Differing from mental health disabilities, mental health encompasses emotional, psychological, and social aspects of well-being. The main difference between the two is that mental health can impact everyone, whereas mental health disabilities will not. There is a history between the 2SLGBTQ+ community and DSM, where the DSM harmfully classified identities as mental disorders. 2SLGBTQ+ individuals are more likely to face mental health concerns than any other group for a few key reasons. Similarly, the community poses higher risks for mental health concerns that stem from issues regarding social inclusion, freedom from discrimination and violence, and access to economic resources. This is further evident among trans individuals who have high rates of mental health concerns. Mental health can impact people in various ways, particularly by affecting overall health and stigma experienced. However, there are some key aspects that are significant for mental well-being. As such, there are multiple ways individuals can manage their mental health. However, methods will differ between people. What is important is that they are effective and meaningful for the individual. Additionally, there are ways to support 2SLGBTQ+ individuals, but self-care is most important. Finally, providers and practitioners can support 2SLGBTQ+ clients in many different ways. That concludes this presentation on the 2SLGBTQ+ community and mental health. Thank you for watching.